Well, let's get this thing started here, shall we? Should have everything set up properly. Apparently YouTube's not receiving enough info to stream. Oh, not video. Oh, that makes sense because it's not gameplay. That makes sense. Just a still image. Anyways, so welcome back everybody to the GSFL live stream recap, weekly recap, whatever you want to call it. It's obviously the third installment of this little series here in relation to the GSFL. And this week we are going to obviously, or in this episode of the recap, we're going to talk about all the games that happened. And after that, we're going to talk about some certain players, like, running back to Sean Gills. It's on the for the plays for the Tokyo Dragons. It's in the title there. We'll have a question of whether or not he is possibly the greatest running back to ever live. And then we'll move on further that. We'll talk about weekly awards, talk about the power rankings, as well as some prediction. And then we'll go into the predictions, my predictions, for each of the this week's upcoming games. So, yeah, I'm not going to waste too much more of you guys' time. Let's just get right into this, and hopefully we can make this, I don't know, somewhat interesting. It seems like we're buffering a little bit, though, because for some reason the thing is not, it's not at a lower, the stream itself is at a 29, or the bitrate is actually decently high. For some reason YouTube is being weird. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah, error, YouTube is not receiving enough. Is there something I can do right now? Or do I have to wait? I might have to wait. No, I can up the bitrate. Up it to 2900. Try that. See if it actually goes up there, because I don't know what the deal is. So if you guys are experiencing buffering, it's being weird for some reason. Let's see here. We're having some streaming issues. At least on my, let me just see if I can try something here. Let's move on to this screen. Let's see if that fixes it. Because I know there's not enough video. To me, I just assumed that would have meant like it's because it's a still image. But let me just see if it does something here that fixes it. I don't know, but I'm trying to figure this out here. So yeah, I don't know what is going on exactly. Hopefully it's not too bad, but I guess we'll just kind of go forward with it, and if YouTube decides to actually fix itself, that would be awesome. But if not, well, current bitrate is lower than the recommended rate. Interesting. Okay. So what if we update that again? That's not what I wanted. I want output. There we go. Update it to like 3000. See if that does something. Because right now it says even the 2933 kilobits is too low, which is strange because it should be fine. Stream it again here. See if this actually does anything. Oh, now we're at high bit rate. Okay, there we go. Good. Well, of course, it's a good status now. Is this gonna stop though? I don't know if it is or not. I think it's fine. Let me just test if we're still live. I'll go back to the thumbnail here. There's a little bit of a delay on my other screen. So now it says it's good. So I don't know. There's some minor issues still. I don't know what the deal is with that. Okay, so we are still streaming. Okay, good. We have a decent connection. Let's just continue this on and let's hopefully not run into any more problems. All right. So, we're gonna, like I said, recap stuff and hopefully we'll have some fun here. So, we'll start off with each of the games individually, like we did last week, and then we'll move on to talk about certain topics, and we'll kind of talk about some of these other topics as we get through the games, individually. So we'll do that right now. So let's get to not the schedule. That's not right. I wanted to do. Let's see. Oh, that's the background. There we go. All right, so the first game we're going to talk about tonight is the first ever game of last week, which was, let me just pull this up on your screen, which was the live Thursday night game between the Tokyo Dragons and the Sacramento. They used to be Sacramento, the Oakland Redwoods. So another matchup inside of the WFC West division, more specifically. And the Dragons managed to get the job done on the road in Oakland, so they remain in the U.S. For back-to-back games, and that was partially done on purpose for the scheduling, so make it seem realistic. You're not going to travel, from Tokyo, Japan, and then have to go back to practice. I mean, they probably would stay in the U.S. and practice anyways, but I just felt like giving them 2 away games in the beginning of the year would make the most realistic sense. I try to do that as much as possible with the custom schedule. So there's that. Anyways, but yeah, so this game, so just looking at the box score here, I'm not gonna obviously have anything to show you. I mean, you can see it on the screen. At least for these live games, you can see it on the screen. Or games that were live. I have the stat sheet with them too. So anyways, yeah, this game. So this was the first game that was using the new sliders that I used for this week, starting this week, which hopefully should make the games more realistic, more closer scores, and well, not necessarily closer scores. You can see Exhibit A right here, but the scores should be more the playthrough should be more realistic. We should not have very many games where people throw for a lot or get a ton of crazy catches because there's no defense. It should be CPU versus CPU. Or same thing on the other side of things. We shouldn't have as many turnovers. Theoretically, it should make everything play and look more like you're actually watching a real life, pro football game, like you would in the NFL, for example. So that's the whole purpose of this. So far, when I've watched games this week or for this past week, and then for this week, it's started to look like that, which is good. There are a couple of games in here that this happened this week though. After I changed the sliders, there's a couple I recorded before I changed them, but there's majority of the week was recorded after, and those games there you'll know which ones those are. Trust me. Anyways, but yeah, talking about more of this game individually. So, yeah, Dragons get the win on the road. Move on to 2-0, leading their division now. Oakland falls to 1-1 after their close, tight win over the Riverhogs last week. So, get a little bit of revenge there. Dan Norwell threw for actually had a really good completion percentage, roughly 70, almost 80% of his completed almost 80% of his passes. Only threw for 200 yards, but really that's all he had to do because I guess we'll talk about this right now here. Deshaun Gills, I mean, this man already had a crazy rushing, broke the rushing record for the league in just his first first game, 230 something yards. This is after I changed the sliders, mind you. He then proceeds to break his own record and rushes for, after 31 carries, so already a lot. He probably should have been subbed out, but this game is not quite that realistic in which I mean, I think it will. I just didn't adjust it that much. So unfortunately, he didn't, he had a majority of the carries. It probably could, if I would make him not my third down back, that would or the team's third down running back, that would probably have helped. But anyways, he had 31 carries, and 278 yards. on the ground. No touchdowns, surprisingly, though. But yeah, so talk about a literal GOAT-ish performance, if you will. I don't expect this to repeat a third time, but if it does, we're gonna have to look into it, if he's taking PEDs or something. I'm kidding. Um, but anyways, yeah. So Norwell didn't have to throw as much because Deshaun Gills just was a beast once again. Um, Brian Beck, the receiver for the Dragons, I believe that's his name, right? Yep, Brian Beck. Had a good game, 10 catches, 114 yards, touchdown. Behind him, their tight ends, Jason Gales, had a touchdown as well. Their rushing touchdowns came from Dan Norwell had a rushing touchdown himself. Their fullback had a rushing touchdown. Their backup running back had a touchdown. So, yeah, overall, the Dragons basically led this one throughout the game. It seemed like it was pull up my notes here. It seemed like it was a close game in the beginning from what I remember. Let me just pull this up here. But yeah, so overall they get a huge win over the Redwoods and they now have a 2-0 lead, not only in the league but also in their division as well, as they beat the Elks last week in San Diego. So as for Oakland, yeah, Young had to throw. I don't know why I said 56. It's 58 times. That's a lot of times to throw the ball. He only managed to complete a little over half of them, and 409 yards. But also he threw 3 interceptions. So had he not thrown those 3 interceptions, this team probably would have made the game closer. They probably would have had a chance of winning. But I'm not gonna point fingers. It just seems that that's my observation. So there's that. But anyways, so yeah, and then Dom Burton had a very, very not so great game compared to last week. Just got shut down ultimately from the Dragons defense. Morgan Whiteside, like all the receivers. Actually, I take that back. I was looking at the rushing yards. Morgan Whiteside led the team with 9 catches, 127 yards, so he still had a really good day. Justice Meadows had another good game, 93 yards and a touchdown. The tight end had 93 yards. So statistically, they were great. Or the receivers and skills players teams were great. Aside from Sam Young. Aside from the fact that they threw 2 turnovers. No fumbles. But yeah, overall, just the Redwoods ended up coming short. And the Dragons end up winning by 23 points. So, yeah, that's really all to say about that game. Sorry if you could hear that. I was just getting a drink of water. Because there's a lot to talk over these games. Anyways, but yeah, so that's all for this game. A good win for the Dragons. Redwoods got to keep working on it. But they're in a good spot. Obviously, they had a close game last week. So there's that. But now we're going to move on to our noon games on our Saturday games, starting with our noon slate. Starting with game number 2, which was the Sentinels of San Juan traveling on the road to Orlando, Florida to take on the Wizards and Trevor Lawrence and the Wizards specifically. And the Wizards managed to get the job done at home, 37-19. Looking more in detail at the stats here, Trevor Lawrence, 26 for 48, so not very good completion accuracy-wise, but 281 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Wasn't sacked at all, so not a bad day for him. His running back, Kevin Holt, had a good game, 108 yards on the ground and 31 carries. And the reason why he's had so many yards is because Jaquez Kinney got injured again. I believe he went out of the game last week too on Monday Night Football, or on Monday. And but yeah, he's so far gotten out of the game the last 2 weeks. So hopefully that doesn't continue for them. But if it does, they obviously have a solid running backup in Kevin Holt, so they can probably suffice. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground too. So there you go. As for receivers wise, Brian Tarpley had a good game again. Their tight end Matt Hendricks had a decent game, and then their other receivers did all right. Trevor Lawrence himself actually had 36 yards on the ground as well with his legs, in addition to his passing stats. Defensively, they were, I guess we'll talk about defensively later, but defensively they were really good, obviously shutting down the Sentinels, who were the number one offense, and still are, I think, the number one offense as of this week. But the key differences with the Sentinels this week between this week and last week is Bryce Young was injured. And obviously, you remember, for those that watched, Bryce Young broke the passing record somehow, because he scored like 60 points. Or the team scored 60 points. He threw for like 500 something yards. He got injured in the game, left the game early, was out for this week. He'll be back this next week, I presume. And so their backup had to step in for the Sentinels. And actually, I don't even think it's their backup. It's their third string, technically, because their backup was already injured. So yeah, Dylan Pierce had to step in for the Sentinels. And he proceeded to throw about as good as Bryce Young probably would have thrown. 351 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Had a better completion percentage than Lawrence. The only difference is he was sacked 8 times. Which probably assumes why the Wizards won by as much as they did. Or kind of helps show why they won by as much as they did. Running game was very good. Andrew Overstreet did a really good game from the ground, 97 yards. As for receiving, obviously, 351 yards distributed. Alex Golson got over 120 in a touchdown. Their tight end, Jared Dishman, got 71 yards in a touchdown. And then the reason why Dishman's in is because Kyle Pitts, I believe, is injured, and he's actually out for a lot of weeks as well. So a little bit unfortunate there, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Defensively they were unable to do a whole lot except for they get the 1 interception. Then for the Wizards, obviously they're able to get sacked Pierce 8 times and also get an interception off of him. The interception came from Carlos Jones, by the way, who had the Defensive Player of the Week award for the EFC conference. So we'll talk about the awards later as well, by the way, if I didn't say that already in the intro. So, but yeah. So, anyways, there's that. So that's this game done. We'll move on to the next game, which, oh boy, this one, yeah, okay. And it was after this game that I proceeded to decide to then change the sliders, because I thought, okay, the Sentinels Wizards game wasn't too bad statistic wise. A lot of that points, like it seemed pretty realistic to me, at least. It seemed like something that could happen in real life. And I'm not saying this game isn't. This couldn't happen. This could very well happen in the real life NFL. But I don't know, like the contrast between last week and this week, I just felt like changing the sliders was the best option. So that's what I did. But it was after this game, unfortunately. So going for stats wise, so obviously the Lumberjacks get a huge bounce back win after their, one word to describe it, terrible game against the Antlers at home last week. Patrick Mahomes turned back into Patrick Mahomes, essentially. Proceeded to, unlike last week, flip his touchdown interception ratio, throw 7 touchdown passes, a new record, by the way, for this league, from the previous seasons, and no interceptions. Like, none. He got sacked twice, but he nearly had a perfect passer rating. He had 71% completion percentage. He just could not miss. Like, granted, he threw 32 for 45, like 367 through the air. That's very good. His receiver, Greg Tompkins, had almost the receiving record in a game. 204 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns. This did not go into overtime. They just could, like, the Caps defense just had no answer for them. I don't know what exactly maybe that loss last week just, triggered them so much that they're just, became superhuman all of a sudden. I don't know what happened. But I do know is that the sliders have been adjusted since this game. This should not necessarily happen again. If it does, I'll have to look into some other things to try and get it more. Sorry, I'm playing with something. A headphone case. Anyways, but yeah, so that is why I've decided to change the sliders, was because of this game. So yeah, I mean, Mahomes is back on track like I predicted he would. But anyways, but yeah, so other things, I guess the rushing game was kind of meh for the Lumberjacks. They had 73 yards after 14 carries. Their leading rusher. Um, but other than that, I mean, that's basically about it. You know. Anyways, ooh, that was loud. Moving on to the Capitals though, talking about them. So the 49 points is nothing to look over or like gloss over. Junior Gray had actually a decent game as well. 73% completion percentage, 90 QBR, but his touchdown to interception ratio was 1 for 1. He threw 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So he could also not stop throwing interceptions. So again, that's why I changed the sliders. The running back, Sam Pamphil, had 10 carries, 72 yards on the ground, touchdown as well. And then the receivers, they had 2 receivers hit break 100 yards. Those receivers were Kyrie Davis and Dwayne Hooker, each with a touchdown as well. The wide receiver, Cassidy Higgins, had 2 touchdowns, 88 yards. And then the tight end, Cliff Lambert, also had a good game as well. Not as good as he had last week, but still pretty good. 84 yards and a touchdown after 9 catches. So, yeah, overall, very, very ish defense existed game ish. I mean, I guess you could say with the amount of points that they let up for each side, but yeah, I try really hard not to make this look like college football. It kind of reminded me of that in this scenario. I don't know why. It just points popping up all over the place, or like Madden on rookie mode. Trust me, this is not on rookie mode either. So, anyways, I'm done ranting about this game. Let's move on. Moving on to the next game here. The Thunderbirds traveled to Canton, Ohio, just north of Canton after hosting the Tigers at home last week. And they beat the Aviators 31-23, so by 1 score, or roughly 1 score. It was 8 points. Actually, no, it was 1 score. Well, if you can hear noises, I should say this. You might hear noises, and that's because the fireworks are going off near my house, as it is the 4th of July weekend approaching us here. So, you're allowed to shoot them off where I live the day before. So, if you hear some fireworks, that's why. Anyways, just try and ignore it, though. But yeah, so for the Thunderbirds, Nate Hampton had, pretty good game. 325 through the air, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 4 sacks. Obviously, this is after the sliders kicked in, so seemed realistic. His running game was kind of, didn't have Emmett Massey. He's out for a couple weeks. Jacoby Ricard, excuse me, came in for him. 76 yards on the ground. Speaking too fast. 76 yards on the ground. Not too terrible. Had 1 fumble as well in there. Receiving game was kind of meh for them, but not too bad. Taylor Westbrook led the receiving group with 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then obviously Nate Hampton was sacked 4 times. I forgot to mention that. So the defense of the Aviators did decently. Speaking of the Aviators, they scored 23 points. Joseph Church had an all-right game. 449 yards through the air. Wowzers. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Juan Randolph, the running back, 67 yards and 19 carries. So kind of a less of an impressive day than Jacoby Ricard. And then as for the receivers, they had 1 receiver dominate everybody, and that was Eddie Olston, who was the had 12 catches, 188 yards, and no touchdowns as well. So, pretty good game for him. I forget what he did last week, but the 1 touchdown from Joseph Church went to the tight end Justin Babber, excuse me. So. Yeah, and all in all, then their defense, like I said, they sacked Hampton 4 times. They didn't pick him off at all. Excuse me, they sacked him behind, or they had several tackles for loss, so pretty good. But all in all, the Thunderbirds get the win here on the road in Canton, and they move up to 2-0, where the Aviators fall to 1-1. Excuse me. Very excited to talk about this, apparently. Moving on to another absolute annihilation in week 2. The Elks... Dang, fireworks. Sorry about that. The Elks host the Steamers and put up a whopping 58 points to just allowing 3. I don't know if that's even physically possible in today's like real life NFL game. I mean, you have to be seriously have a very, very good defense and a very like above average or like very strong offense. Like, I don't even know if I could physically, I mean, unless you're a really pro Madden player or unless you're facing a really like really low overall team, I don't even know if this is possible to get in the game. I've never seen it happen. Thankfully, I've never had it happen to me with an opponent I faced while playing the game, actually playing it, not just watching it. But yeah, the Elks, despite I think the Steamers being the favorite in this game initially, yeah, the Elks gave them a huge slap on the face. Not even a slap, more like just slap, kick, maybe a kick in the punch in the gut or so. I don't know. Like they knocked them out. They knocked out the Steamers and put them in a coma. That's what they did. But anyways, I was getting a little excited there. I thought it was kind of a cool analogy. Anyways, but yeah, moving on. So we have the Steamers here. We'll talk about them first. Actually, let's talk about the no, we'll talk about the Steamers first. See what went wrong here. So Brian Burbank, the quarterback, threw for 50 times, or he threw 50 times for 209, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions. You can see why they have 3 points now. And then no touchdowns on the ground for either of the running backs. 29 yards allowed rushing. This makes the Elks, I think, the best rushing defense I've ever seen. And then for receiving game, wasn't even terribly that bad. Their tight end, Chip Snell, led the team with 78 yards after 7 catches, but also no touchdowns through the air because Brian Burbank could not get the ball out in time. He got sacked 6 times. So the Steamers' offensive line just ultimately failed them, allowing him to get sacked so many times. And then Burbank left the game or something. I wasn't even necessarily. I was, obviously I watch these games as I, record and whatever. I get notes down and whatnot. Like obviously, I want to start to watch them when they premiere as well. But anyways, I don't even remember how this happened, but the backup quarterback came in, Ronnie Schaefer, who proceeded to throw 2 for 4, 27 yards, and got sacked again as well. So he didn't even have a QBR because he didn't throw an interception or throw a touchdown. So they couldn't make a QBR based off nothing. But yeah, all in all, Steamers, your defense, by the way, did like something. I mean, you got 3 sacks, and no picks. So there you go. Then Joel Basie, now we'll move on to the Elks because we obviously got to know how they scored 58 points, right? We already freshly know how because the Steamers just, their O-line was just a, paper mache wall. Like, the ones you find at, you make your costumes. I don't know. Anyways, Joel Basie had a god-tier game. 472, 5 touchdowns, no picks, perfect passer rating, or 137 QBR. Probably a perfect passer rating, or close to it. I think it's QBR. And a 73% completion percentage. On the ground, is that Lamar Thurman? Yep, Lamar Thurman, the running back, had almost 100 yards. Actually, him and Eric Logan both almost had 100 yards each on the ground. Thurman had a touchdown. In terms of receiving, they had 2 receivers hit over 100 yards. One of them was Roy Warner, and the other one is on the cover of this. Matthew Murray had 164 yards after 9 catches and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, all in all, base takeaway from this is that the Steamers got to get their O-line sorted out and figure out a way to, not let every single defender through to get to the quarterback. As for the Steamers, they need to make sure their quarterback's protected so they can actually get the ball out in time. So, but if you're, the Steamers, this is a very embarrassing loss. I mean, I don't know. You come out from last week beating, who did they beat? I don't remember now. I think it was the Oilers. Anyways, and then you also then go on the road and you actually get your butt kicked. Kicked in, even. Pretty decent amount, too, by the San Diego Elks. So, yeah, all I can say is Memphis, you got to do better. You got to do much better. Elks, you're fine, though. You guys are doing well, though. Anyways, enough about that. Let's move on to these 3 p.m. games here. I've already been going here for about almost half an hour. So, the next game here to talk about in our 3 p.m. window, we had the Orbits traveling to Sacramento to take on the Condors. And the Condors get another huge win, 44 points to just 17 put up by the Orlando Orbits. Honolulu Orbits. I forgot I relocated them. So let's look at this. So Orbits, we'll look at them we'll look at the Condors first. Quarterback Jake McLean had 75% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Another very good game for him. The running back Devontae Howard had 100 yards on the ground. They had one receiver break 100 yards, and that was Rocky Edgerton, 131 yards, 3 touchdowns, tied the record by the way. 10 catches. So absolutely God day here, or God tier day, if you will, is what the kids say, I think. I don't know. And I thing disconnected for a second here. Oh wait, there it is. Oh, now it should be fixed. Okay. So if we cut off for a second, that's why. Anyways. So yeah, the Condors, they had a really good game. Then meanwhile, looking at the Orbits, they had their tough loss against the Wizards this past Monday. Then Tucker Finnegan comes out here, throws 39 for 57, 328 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, sacked 4 times. Their running game, just Steven Short is not the answer at the running back position. I don't know how he's even a starter at this point. I mean, I know I'm bashing him now after only 2 weeks of play, but he had 54 yards and 17 carries, not good. Their top receiver, Lorenzo Sharp, had a good day, at least 118 yards. Junior Minor, record setter himself, had 95 yards through the air. The 2 touchdowns coming from Rudy Douglas, the tight end, as well as Bobby Pritchett, one of the wide receivers from them. Excuse me, my voice can't stop cracking. But yeah, so overall, a very good win for the Condors. They move up to 1-1. Orbits fall sadly to 0-2. Excuse me. Now moving on to the next game here on the list, we have the Voyagers taking on the Huskies in Toronto, and the Huskies managed to get another good win here, second win in a row, week 2. David Diaz had a good game, 356 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. The running back Darion Jackson had a good day, 121 yards on the ground, nice. 1 touchdown along with it. Their top receiver was their tight end, Darrell Matthews. 10 catches, 117, and 2 touchdowns. So both the touchdowns went to him. Taking out the Voyagers, led by Justin Herbert, who had about even day. Actually, he threw for more, but he only threw 1 touchdown. His running game was about the same. Cameron Hennings went off, 112 yards, touchdown. And then their top receiver was Nico Lopez, who had 9 catches for 165. And, the sole touchdown for the team came from a short pass, a 10-yard pass to Alex Melton, who was one of the backup running backs. So, yeah, overall, the Voyagers, they tried their best here in this game, but the Huskies ended up getting the win here and move up to 2-0, and the Voyagers will fall to 0-2 on the year. So, not much else to talk about here at this game, I don't think. Defense, no, not really. I mean, 1 pick from the Virginia Beach defense, but that's about it. So, I know I'm glossing over the game. I don't mean to, but there you go. Then we got the next game here, which is game 8, which is the Desperados and the Armadillos in Austin, Texas. And the Armadillos, man, this team is something special. 55-13, the final score. Picture there of Andrew Minor, who had a good game himself. But let's talk about the offense first. We have Michael Sullivan with just under 300 yards passing, a touchdown. So only one touchdown. 81% completion percentage, the best I've ever seen to this point in the year by a quarterback. Matthew Fowler had, I think that's his name, right? Yep, Matthew Fowler on the ground had 187 yards, 2 touchdowns. Their backup running back, by the way, Dontrell Bullock, also had 2 touchdowns. He had this is one of the most bizarre stats I've ever seen in all of my time playing Madden. 3 attempts, 8 yards, 2 touchdowns. That means that 2 of his attempts were touchdowns. That's crazy. Anyways, Michael Sullivan also had 67 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Their receiving core didn't do too bad. Lamar Strong, the wide receiver, had 104 yards and no touchdowns. Their wide receiver, Chris Verdon, we didn't really see a whole lot of action from him, unfortunately. He had the record-breaking game in Week 1 against the Monarchs last week. But now he, or in Week 1, I should say. And yeah, he just did not have the same game, just didn't get the same amount of targets. I don't know what the deal was, but he's still out there. He's still getting the catch or getting the ball sometimes, but yeah, it was kind of shocking to see him not get the ball more. He's probably not even the number 1 receiver technically on the depth chart, so I wouldn't be surprised about that. Then we'll move on to the Desperados, where they struggled again. They struggled last week against the Pioneers at home as well. This was no different. Was it Kerry Hyde? Yeah, Kerry Hyde, 27 for 43, 249, and a touchdown, 4 sacks, or took 4 sacks. Eric Peely, their running back, had 70 yards, just 70 yards. A little slow for him. The receiving core was not the greatest. They had one guy break over 70, and that was Jeremiah Franklin, who also had the lone touchdown of the game as well for the Desperados. So, yeah, takeaways from this game. Obviously, by the way, defenses played it played all right for the Desperados, but and for, I guess, the Armadillos too. But the Armadillos obviously had more of a better, shot at stopping the plays because obviously they only allowed 13 points. But yeah, so overall takeaways: Desperados just need to work on their offense, getting things going, and for minimizing turning the ball over on downs or just punting. And the Armadillos, they can just keep the boat rolling, or keep the boat sailing, if you will, because they are a strong 2-0 right now. I will say that right now. But anyways, moving on to the last game of the 3 p.m. time slot, and that is going to be the Golden Eagles hosting the Rio de Janeiro Nighthawks in Mexico City. So 52-31 is your final score. Another division matchup inside the WFC South, I believe. And what a game this was. CJ Stroud versus Greg Hyde. Stroud obviously came out victorious. 4 touchdowns from him, 395 yards, 1 pick. Actually, both quarterbacks had 1 pick. But Stroud threw more, 80% completion percentage to Greg Hyde's 66. Justin Mullins, the running back for the Golden Eagles, formerly the Diablos, 155 on the ground, 3 touchdowns, also tied the record for the most in the game, for 24 attempts. Their top receiver for the Golden Eagles was Ben Saunders, who had 8 catches and 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their touchdowns coming from Joey Looker, as well as a receiver, Juwan Sears. Moving on to the Nighthawks, Greg Hyde, 3 touchdowns, 413 yards. And Eric McDonald had a decent game on the ground as well. Actually, he had a below average game for his standards, 77 yards only, 24 carries. So the same amount of carries as Justin Mullins, just about half as many yards. So defense did a good job for the old Golden Eagles there. Their top receiver was tight end Chris Brackett, who had 114 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. So both the top receivers on the respective teams had 2 touchdowns each. So there you go. And they also had a receiver get a touchdown to Ahmad Pearson. So my takeaway from this game is the Golden Eagles proved that they're one of the teams to beat in the division, and they've now had 2 good back-to-back games. Last week's went to overtime against the Dreadnoughts, and now they have a win here against the Nighthawks. So there you go. Unless the Nighthawks game was against the Dreadnoughts, I forget now. I don't remember. Anyways, but yeah, Golden Eagles, team to beat in the South, WFC South, and the Nighthawks just have to try a little harder and just work to compete with these teams that are in their division and outside their division as well. So, anyways, that'll be the end of the 3 p.m. time slot games here. We'll move on to the final time slotted games, the 5 p.m. time slotted games here. We went through that really quickly. I apologize if I missed anything in there. So, but anyways, so the first game we'll take a look at here is the Blues taking on the Snowhawks. Easily the closest game, one of the closest games, actually one of two close games in this window, happening here in week 2. The game actually went into overtime briefly before the Snowhawks were able to come away with a last-second field goal, or a field goal to break the tie and win the game. So yeah, the Blues unfortunately slump again on this one. Jordan Love, 507, so almost close to the record, actually the old record even. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, 55%, 59% completion percentage. So not as bad of a game as he had last week with the 6 interceptions, but still kind of not the greatest. Then moving on to Greg Boykin for them, 95 yards on the ground, no touchdowns. So okay for him. He had 3 100-yard receivers in this game. Marcus Bowden had 177 yards and a touchdown. LaMarcus Washington had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Marquise McLeod had 108 yards and a touchdown as well. So a lot of wide receiver talent here in St. Louis. As for the Snowhawks, Larry Rudd had a good game, 340, 1 touchdown. So not crazy, but pretty solid. 68% completed. His running back, Morris Blue, had 18 for 96 yards, or 18 carries, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. So a very good game for him. And then they did not have a receiver break 90 yards. But Alex Hawkins was the sole receiver that had a touchdown on the day. So it was really their defense, I believe. It might have been, it was their defense that kept them in this game. They had 1 pick 6, 2 interceptions, both by cornerback Jermaine Taylor, who we will hear from again shortly, but a little later on, know why in a minute. But yeah, he had a good game himself. 2 interceptions and 2 touchdown at least. So, but yeah, unfortunately, Blues will fall short again, fall into the bottom of their division. 0-2. Snowhawks move up to 1-1 after the colossal defeat against the Sentinels in week 1 at home. So, but anyways, that's really all I got for that game. Just give me 1 second to get a drink here. Anyways, all right. So that is that game. Let's move on to our next one here. That's 5 p.m. games. I need to see these all here. Then we have the next game here, which was the one of the more shocking games to me, at least on paper. The Tigers taking on the Shamrocks in Dublin, and the Shamrocks fall 55-19. Man, the backup quarterback there, as you see in the picture, Steve Edmonds, took over because Lamar Jackson was injured out for the game. So he stepped up, and did he do good. We may or may not have a quarterback controversy in Chicago because this man threw 474 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, only was sacked 2 times, QBR of 126. I mean, he was great. Did not have any rushing, or no, he did have a couple rushing yards. He actually even had a touchdown on the ground too. This guy had a total of 6 touchdowns to this game. I mean, my goodness. I was expecting Lamar, and then all of a sudden this guy showed up. I'm like, well, let's see this guy how he does. He did really well. He put 55 points on a team that I didn't think he was going to. But there you go. Especially after their tough loss. Overall, just the Tigers team, I just didn't think they would necessarily beat the Shamrocks this bad, based on how badly they lost to the Thunderbirds in week 1. So 2 road games for Chicago, and they've proven that they can win on the road. So there you go. But moving on more in depth a little bit here. The running back for the Tigers, I mean, their team just clicked this game. Jonathan Love, the running back, had 139 yards and a touchdown. Marcus Anthony, the wide receiver, had 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another receiver, DJ Moreland, had 98 yards and 1 touchdown. Other touchdowns came from their tight end, Alex Keene, and Kyrie Withers, respectively. So overall, a very good game from this Tigers team. Their defense did pretty good as well, obviously holding the Shamrocks to 19 points. So all in all, a great game for the Tigers. As for the Shamrocks, though, this is their back-to-back home games, and this is back-to-back losses. Last week, if you remember, they faced the Black Knights on primetime, and they were swiftly embarrassed, I think almost by a similar score. They also allowed as much over 50 points as well, so their defense is very, very low in the rankings, and probably will be if I go look at it. But yeah, overall, just not good, not really that good at all. But anyways, so that's really how this is at this point. Anyways, so that's just how it is, and yeah, I don't know why I'm losing thought. Will Bentley had an alright game. He had 329, no casual 329 yards and a touchdown, but got sacked 6 times. Ouch. Ended with a positive QBR though, or a really high QBR for some reason. His running back, Jermaine Davis, had 31 yards, so very poor performance by his standards, and but just from what I've seen from him. Chris Barnes had a pretty good game, 130 yards through the air, all things considered, a touchdown, the sole touchdown by the team. But man, they just got clobbered, and there was no turning back. So yeah, good win for the Tigers here on the road. I think they'll be back home this next week, in week 3. So it'll be good to see them at home. We've seen them back to back on the road. So yeah, I'm assuming Lamar will be back, but I don't know. Like I said, there might be a controversy. We'll see. But yeah, so that is that game. Then we'll move on to our next second to last game of Saturday. We had the Oilers taking on the Bulls. Easily our closest game yet. This game was decided by a final touchdown from the Oilers late in the fourth quarter, as the Bulls were leading, I believe 19 to 15 or something like that. It was a really odd score, and the Oilers ended up getting a touchdown and then going an extra point, breaking the tie. Actually, no, it was 13 to 19. Yeah, what am I saying? So yeah, it was 19-13. Bulls were leading. Oilers get a last-second touchdown, essentially ends the game, and the Oilers move up and bounce back from last week's loss. Anthony Richardson came back in this game, 273, a touchdown, an interception. He was sacked 9 times, so the O-line did not exist. He was his team's leading rusher for 110 yards. Not the touchdown though, that came from his tight end, or his acting as the fullback, I can't tell. His leading receiver had 107 yards. So there's that. But yeah, very close game. As for the Bulls, Drew Roderick had 291 and a touchdown and a pick, so pretty similar to Richardson, but was sacked 7 times, so a little less. So his O-line also didn't protect him very well. He was also the leading rusher on his team, so these two teams are kind of similar in a way. I don't know, it's just a weird connection. Then the Bulls' leading receiver was Jose Pearson, 111 yards, 13 catches. The old record, I believe, or one short of the old reception record in a game. But yeah, overall, their defense, or that last second touchdown is what made the difference. And, really the defense in general just made a difference with the sacks and whatnot. But yeah, very close game, came down to the wire. The Bulls will fall to 0-2, and the Oilers will move up to 1-1. So yeah, That's cool. Finally, the last game of Saturday Premier Games was the Mounties taking on the Antlers for the first time since season. And I messed up the graphic again. That's funny. I messed up the graphic again. That's not the correct score. The correct score was actually 40-19, so it was a lot less close than it looks like, at least at first on screen here. But this was the first time these two teams had faced since season 1. They faced in, I believe, week 1. Was it week 1? Yeah, it was week 1. I believe the Mounties won that one too. But anyways, so the Mounties now 2-0 all time against the Antlers, essentially. But yeah, so first looking at the Mounties, Joe Burrow, no touchdowns, right? No passing touchdowns, 323 yards, and a 60% completion percentage. So on the surface, it doesn't look like he did much. Then we got the running back here for the Anthony Young, who had 1 touchdown and 1 or 4 yards on the ground, so pretty good game for him. Is he? He's at number 4. Okay, who's number 4? Oh, that's a defensive play. Anyways, yeah, so it was a defense for the Mounties that stepped in for these guys, by the way. Joe Burrow was second in leading his team. He had a touchdown himself on the ground as well, showing off his scrambling ability. Their leading receiver was Dante Kearse, the tight end, who had 132. No touchdowns, obviously. But their defense is where it was at. They had a outside linebacker, Dean Bennett, get an interception, and a did they have a touchdown? It actually did not have a touchdown. But yeah, so they had a couple sacks. Total sacks they had was 7. We'll get to that in a moment. But they also had 2 interceptions as a defense as well, so they scored off of those points. But yeah, and then moving on to the Antlers then. Jadarius Herring having an all-right game. Jeez, fireworks. All-right game. 451 through the air, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions. Sacked 7 times. I said that earlier. And then their running back, his running back, Deontay Golston, was leading rusher. 41 yards, so not a great rushing game. And then their leading receiver, they had 200-yard receivers. Andrew Davis was 143, or had 143 and 1 touchdown. And their second receiver was Telvin Page, who had 101 and 8 after 8 catches. So there you go. And their other touchdown came from wide receiver Deshaun Lawrence. So, but yeah, overall, and their defense did all right, but not the greatest. They sacked Burrow 6 times. That's about it. So yeah, Mounties get a huge bounce back win. Antlers fall to 1-1. So, and this was a game within the division as well. So the Mounties move ahead of the Antlers in the division now. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Not a whole lot else to talk about there. Oh, we're almost done. We are done with the Saturday games. But now we're going to move on to the live games that happened on Sunday and on the 2 games that happened on Monday. So the first game, which was supposed to be the second game on Sunday, but I completely lost track of time, and I completely forgot to announce / do the game that was supposed to be on 5 p.m. Central on Sunday. So I moved that one to early on Monday, and that seemed to work out just fine. But anyway, so our regular Sunday game, that was going to be the night game anyways, the Riverhogs taking on the Dreadnoughts, and the Riverhogs get a major bounce back win on the road in San Antonio, 42-24. The flip score, as I call it. Steve Dowling had a great game, 4 touchdowns, 503, no picks. Justin Lopez had a good game, 80 yards on the ground, and Will Cooper led their team in receiving yards, 183, 2 touchdowns as well. So very good game by him. They also had another receiver break 100 yards as well, and that was Curtis Roberts, the tight end, at 144 yards and a touchdown. Speaking of which, then we move on to the Dreadnoughts, who didn't have as great of a game. Deshaun Bradley threw for over 300 yards still, 377, 2 touchdowns, but also threw 3 interceptions, was sacked 2 times. Zay Pierce, 62 yards and a touchdown. Bradley was second on the team. Matthew Maynard, I believe, left the game early. He's not injured, but he left the game this game early, which allowed for Pierce to come in. And then obviously wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown had 8 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown. And they also, their tight end, Nick Baca, also had over 100 yards receiving. So, yeah, overall, just a great game from the Riverhogs. Much better performance than last week against the Redwoods. And, excuse me. Yeah, overall, great game from him. And, or great game from them, excuse me. Which puts them now in their division race a little bit more than they were last week after the heartbreaking loss. So, as for the Dreadnoughts, obviously, I put them, their record's wrong, actually. They're actually 0-2. So, yeah. Anyways. But yeah, and then as for the defenses for both teams, I guess I can mention this. Obviously, 3 interceptions for the Riverhogs. And how many sacks for the? 5 sacks for the Dreadnoughts defense. So, there you go there. Then moving on, we have the first game of our Monday night matchups. Supposed to be on Sunday, but again, my fault. The Pioneers travel to OKC to take on their new division rival in the Bisons, and they unfortunately fall 24-16. Jeez, 24-16 they fall. Brady Malone just could not stay upright in the pocket. I think got sacked 9 times. Maybe it was more than that, I think. Was it more than that? I feel like it was more than that. Oh, yeah, it was more than that. It was 13 times. And I believe that's a league record, too, by a team. I believe it was last season, in the other, league's incarnation, that we had a game where I think the Sentinels defense got like 11 sacks. I thought that was a lot. So, yeah, Malone could not stay upright. This Bison's pass rush was too much for him. Still threw a lot of yards, but didn't throw a touchdown pass. So, there you go. Their running back, he was also the team's leading rusher, which is kind of sad. 9 attempts for 97 yards. Their actual running back got a touchdown at least, Jamal Bennett, but he only got 45 yards. So, ouch. Then their leading receiver was Jadeveon Aiken. 7 catches for 114 yards. No touchdowns, obviously. So, moving on to the other side of things, Brock Purdy leading his team to victory here in week 2, moving on to 2-0. Look at him. 226 yards through the air. Another bad completion percentage. I say bad. Lower completion percentage, like 59%. But 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, sacked only 4 times. And then his running back actually had a really good game. Joey Bernard had 18 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. And then their leading receiver was Michael McQueen, who had 5 catches for 73 yards and a touchdown. Or no, not a touchdown. Their 2 touchdowns came from actually Joey Bernard through the air and Jace Pritchard. Pritchard. Jace. Let me find a name here. Jace Pritchard. There you go. Their tight end had the other sole touchdown the other passing touchdown from Brock Purdy. So, but yeah. So, anyways, good game for both teams. Pioneers unfortunately lose this one, come up just short. Bisons take the 2-0 lead in their division, and we'll see. Look at more of those in detail later on. Moving on then to our last game, the game of the week, which was the game of the week, ended in overtime. The Monarchs taking on the Black Knights in Paris, France. The former Battle of London, as it was known, or called in the last incarnation of the league. Black Knights managed to win at home 33-27 in overtime. What a game. So Josh Allen, I just saw with the Monarchs, Josh Allen threw pretty good. I mean, he had 57% completion percentage, so it was held in check largely. 314 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Was sacked 5 times. He actually went out and this was the Monarchs actually had almost a crazy comeback because they were down big they were down after half, and Allen left the game, so his backup had to come in. But then Allen came back in and tied up the game, 27 points, 27. Then it went to overtime, and then you see how that ended. I believe they actually started with the ball first too. So you can't. There's no arguments there. But yeah, then the running game for the Monarchs was okay. John Hargrave had a good game, 134 yards. Touchdown came from Allen and from running back Cassius Creighton. And then the receiving game was okay. Justin Norris, 111 yards. No touchdown. Touchdown came from Josh Nugent. But yeah, sadly the Monarchs will fall to 0-2. And as for the Black Knights, Terry Patterson had a much better game than Josh. 352, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Sacked 9 times. But 75% completion percentage. His running back, Junior Hopkins, was in for the entire game this time. 90 yards and a touchdown. And then his leading receiver. Their receiving room was actually very quiet this time. Derek Hyde still leading the team in catches, or second in catches tied for in yards with the tight end Dalton Faulkner. Faulkner was the one who had a touchdown, as well as Devontae Flemings, who scored the touchdown to win the game at the very end. So, get a water drink again. Okay, sorry about that. Just had to cough for a second because I got water down my windpipe. Anyways. But yeah, so overall, good game from the Black Knights. That'll move up to 2-0. Monarchs will fall to 0-2. But yeah, so overall, pretty good game for, very much the game of the week as it was intended to be. And I'm glad I definitely kept it at the time it was. I originally was going to put the Pioneers and Bisons in this time slot. Push that one back to 9 p.m. Central, but I decided against it, and I'm glad I did. So, alrighty. So that is all the games for the week recapped in a brief, hopefully non-chaotic way. Next is to move on to the next. Obviously, we're now in week 3 already. Crazy enough. Feels like we just started this last week or yesterday. Excuse me. But now we're actually going to move on to the power rankings. Now I got to make sure that I have something loaded up here. If I can. I'm going to make a new screen here. Call it desktop. And kind of... Oh, that's... Yeah, we'll do that. And then we'll do... Can I do window capture? Window capture. Call it power rankings. Not that. We'll do not that. Please not that. Let's see here. I need to oops. Move on to this. There we go. And we'll adjust this as accordingly here. So that way we can see the power rankings here. Obviously, we do have them on the My Franchise tool, but I thought that I'm making this would actually allow me to get this, better for you guys, so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Ooh. And there's that. So, whoops, I closed that on accident. That's not what I want to do. There we go. All right. So we're here in the week 2, or not week 2. Hold on. Change that second. Week 3 power rankings. And this is actually what My Franchise tool says. This is based off of Madden, based off the game. So we have a new number 1 team. We have the Orlando Wizards moving up to number 1. The Armadillos moving down to 2, despite both teams winning. Not exactly sure why that is, but overall. The Bisons at number 3 make a jump 6 spots from number 9. And then the Huskies move up 1 as well. The Golden Eagles move up from 6 spots. The Thunderbirds surprisingly stayed the same. The Black Knights moved up 1. The Dragons coming up 8 spots. And then the Elks coming up 11 spots after their big shellacking of the Steamers. And you'll see the Steamers obviously down there, and we'll talk about them in a second. But yeah, the biggest increase, one of the biggest increases was 11 spots. But as you can see outside of here, so the Caps round up the top 10, dropping 6 spots from number 5. So there's your top 10 teams right here. And then your next team after that, the Nighthawks drop 1 from their original previous spot. The Mounties move up. The Condors move up. The Condors coming from 31 all the way up to 13. The biggest jump of the week. 19 spots in the power rankings. And then the Melbourne Riverhogs just behind them at 14 spots, coming from 28 all the way up to 14. So very impressive games from both those teams. Obviously both winning their games, so makes sense why they had a big jump. Snowhawks went up as well. The Antlers fell down from they were number 3. They were the number 3 team in the league, power ranking wise. And now they're all of a sudden down here at 16 because of their unfortunate loss to the Mounties. So there you go. The Lumberjacks, surprisingly though, funny enough actually, get up to right next to them. That's kind of interesting. You know, these two teams faced off in week 1. Yeah, you remember how that went? Anyways, kind of funny. I chuckled at that because I look at it. The Tigers move up as well. Then we move on to a stretch of teams that just came from the top, tumbling down. Right before the bottom here, we have the Redwoods coming down. The Sentinels coming down 13 spots from 7. The Pioneers coming down 11 spots from 12. And then after that, I mean, the only team up here to move up from this bottom half, really, I mean, this bottom section here, was the Oilers, moving up 7 spots from... Actually, no, they came from 31. So, sorry. The Condors came from the last team in the league all the way up to 13. That's incredible. But yeah, so the old Oilers were the second worst, lowest spot, and now they're all the way up to 24. So, but yeah, and then obviously all these teams dropped here. The Monarchs, all the 0-2 teams are down here. All the 1-1s are in the middle, and the 2-0s are on the top. So, and we only had one team stay the same, and that was the Thunderbirds between this week and last week. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. Which teams surprised you? Which teams, you know, you think should be lower or higher based on what you've watched? Yeah, I mean, this is based off the game, but I could totally make my own as well of what I think. I think that I'm going to go off of this. This is pretty good so far. I mean, it's only 2 weeks in. So as we get down closer to the end, if I feel like there's a team that's better, I'll adjust it. But I'll leave the game to it, use the formula it uses. And especially helps now that we obviously have 32 teams to work with instead of just, you know, the 16, because that was really challenging for me to cross between 2 files and, you know, make 16 or whatever. But anyways, well, we had 32, but then, you know, obviously shortening it down to 16. That was my own thing because of the file getting corrupted, but that's another story. So anyways, but yeah, that's the weekly power rankings for the week 3. Now we're going to move on here to the franchise tool here, and we're going to look at the schedule because I did not get the schedule graphic done in time. Sorry about that. I'll have to make sure it's done and out soon, but I'll show the schedule here, and then we can, you know, move on from there. So, this is the schedule from last week. Whoops. Here's the schedule for this coming week. We have the first this coming Thursday, so tomorrow, which I realize is the 4th of July. So I knew that going into it, but now that I'm all of a sudden realizing it, I kind of know that I'm doing something for the 4th. So trying to figure out if this is actually going to work. Are these going to have to be pre-recorded? I don't know. I'm hoping they can be live, but we'll see. I originally scheduled us a doubleheader for week 3, but we might have to just do one game, and it might have to be earlier just so I can get to my 4th of July festivities, whatever I decide to do tomorrow or whatever I have going on tomorrow. So there's that. And if you guys have stuff going on tomorrow, I don't expect you to watch these games at all. But if you want to tune in, you can. But yeah, so I could move him as well to Friday maybe. We just don't have a Thursday. We move him to Friday. That is also an option as well. But for now, we're just gonna move. We're just gonna leave them where they are. So for Thursday for tomorrow, originally scheduled, we have first a doubleheader was first with 2 division matchups. We have the Dreadnoughts facing the Golden Eagles, and then the Bulls facing the Caps. So as for these 2 teams, we have a 2-0 versus a 0-2 first start us off. Looks like the Mexico City Golden Eagles are favored by 16.5. I'm probably going to take the Golden Eagles in this one because they're at home. We'll just go with that. And then the Capitals facing the Bulls. Caps, I believe, are favored. They are, but not nearly as much. I think I'm going to pick the Bulls in this one to get the upset. I think the Caps might put up a good fight. They might still win the game, but I have this funny feeling that the Bulls will shock people, and they'll probably win big on primetime. So who knows? But yeah, I'll take the Bulls winning this game. So Bulls get the win on the road in Columbus. Moving on to our Saturday games, our noon slot, first starting off with the Mounties and the Lumberjacks of Joe Burrow versus Mahomes. A really good matchup in real life, the real life NFL. Let's see who's favored in this one. The Toronto's favored in this one by, or wait, sorry, it's not Toronto, it's Vancouver. Vancouver's only favored by 2.5. Honestly, I'll take that. I'll take Vancouver to win. I think that the Lumberjacks can put up a good fight. I think it'll be a battle to the end, but I think the Vancouver Mounties will get it done. Then the Steamers and the Black Knights. Black Knights are probably favored to win. Steamers just got slacking. I don't trust the Steamers. Give me the Black Knights. Yeah, give me them by 4. They has them by 14. Give me them by 14. A little harsh, I know, but until the Steamers prove me otherwise. Then we have the Nighthawks and the Riverhogs. The Riverhogs are favored by 10. You know what? They had a good win this last week. I'll take the Riverhogs, and I will take that spread as well. Then we have the Huskies and the Aviators, another division game. A lot of these are division games. Actually, I think most of these are division games. We have the Aviators and Huskies. Huskies, I think, are favored. Yep, by 11.5. Huskies are going to win by not that much. They're going to probably win by about 3. But I still take them at home, though. And then we got the battle in the EFC East, starting off our 4 p.m. time, or 3 p.m. time slot. These are all in Eastern time. So in Central time would be 3 p.m. 0-2 versus 0-2. I did not anticipate these guys being at this point, which is why I'm glad they're in a, non-primetime game. But yeah, who's favored in this one? London's favored by 10.5. I think the Monarchs are going to get their first win, but I don't think it's going to be by 10.5. I think it's going to be by 6 or more. 6.5 or more. So like 7, so like a touchdown. I think it's going to be a fairly close game. It's a division game. It's going to be close. We'll just go with that. Then we got the Pioneers taking on the Condors in Sacramento. That O-line for the Pioneers allowed 13 sacks this last week. Sacramento did a really good game. Give me the Condors, and I'll take the spread at 2.5. The Condors seem like they're going to win in a close game. Then we get the Wizards taking on the Oilers for the first time this year. This has been a rivalry in this league for the last couple of years. Obviously, they've been in the same division. Actually, what's funny is they were in the same division. Then last season they weren't, and now they're in the same division again. So, yeah, it's interesting. And this one has the Wizards favored by 12.5. I'm going to decrease that spread to about 7, but I will take the Wizards to win this one on the road. I know the Oilers are probably better at home than they are on the road, but I'll take the Wizards. Then we get the Tigers and the Blues, Tigers coming off of a huge win with the backup quarterback. Blues are struggling. Give me the Tigers to win this one. And they're supposed to win by 8. Give me the win by 7 or more. That's fine. Then we get the Redwoods, or to start our evening window, the Elks and the Redwoods. Elks had a monster game. Redwoods had an unfortunate loss. My gut wants to say the Elks just because they have a really dominant game. Until I'm shown otherwise, so I'll take the Elks, but not by a ton of points this time. They're probably going to have much less. Switch this up a little bit here. Yeah, they're favored by 15. I will knock that down to 10. I'll knock it down to 7. It's going to be a close game. I can feel that. But I'll take the Elks. Then the Antlers versus the Armadillos. Honestly, give me the Armadillos. That defense, that offense is just, the team's just too balanced, I feel like, for the Antlers to keep up with. So I feel like the Antlers are going to put up a good fight. So it's probably going to be a close game. So I'll take the Armadillos actually by like 3 points. 3 or more points. Field goal or more. If I had to bet on it. And then we get the Orbits and the Dragons. Give me the Dragons. Orbits have not proven to me much. They proved to me that they're one of the not so greatest teams in this league. And I need to see more before I'm convinced that they can compete with all these other teams. So give me the Dragons. Give me the Dragons by 10. I'll make up my own spread. The spread is 15.5. I'll do 10 or more. Then we end off the Saturday evening games with the Thunderbirds and the Snowhawks. Ooh, give me the Thunderbirds. But not by 14.5. Give me them by 7. Snowhawks should be sneaky. They had a sneaky win over the Blues. Close game, but it was a sneaky good win. So I'll keep an eye on them. Larry Rutt has been known to not, flop over very easily when he was formerly known as the, Brooklyn Barons or whatever. So, plus, technically, back when the Brooklyn Barons and the Thunderbirds were in the same division. Now, granted, I know the teams are now new names, whatever. They're now the Snowhawks and the Huskies. But under the name of the Thunderbirds, and this is technically the old Barons team, based on the quarterback and the receiver. So, like the Barons, Larry Rudd against the team named the Thunderbirds, he is 2-0 against. So, just he's at least 2-0. I think he might be more than that. So, he might have a good game against them. I don't know. But I'll still take the Thunderbirds, but only by 7 points. Because I don't want to do too much to get his ego up. Or to get their thing, and then they're going to get Nate Hampton up, and then, whatever. But, yeah, give me the Thunderbirds to win this game by 7 or more points. And then we move on to our Sunday night game matchup between the Voyagers and the Sentinels, another new division rivalry. Voyagers are on the struggle bus, 0-2, and the Sentinels are had weird. They didn't have their starting quarterback. They should have him back this week, I think. So if they have Bryce Young, I will have them winning this game by a lot. If not, then it could be a close game. So I'll bet on Bryce Young playing. So I'll take them to win by 10 or more at home. And then last but not least, we have the Monday Night Football game against the Bisons facing the Desperados in the WFC East. And Bisons had a good win over the who did they face again? Oh, they faced the Riverhogs. Didn't they? I feel like I should know this. I just covered it too. No, they faced the Pioneers. Never mind. Oops. So yeah. You know what? Desperados are struggling too. I'll take the Bisons. Desperados might put up a good fight though. Yeah, I'm still taking the Bisons. Brock Purdy, I trust more than Kerry Hyde and all their team. So yeah, we'll just go with that. But anyways, so yeah, that's my predictions for this week. I'll make sure to record those hopefully this time. Jot them down, see how my record is after this week. But yeah. So anyways, that is all for the schedule here and my predictions. I guess we can go over to we went to the power rankings. We can talk about the weekly awards actually. Let us do the weekly awards. I just realized too that I have this overlaid. Or no, it's my franchise tool. So yeah, no, we're fine. There we go. We'll move it over here. Let's move on to the awards for this week. So for week number 2, the WFC Offensive Player of the Week was none other than Patrick Mahomes for the Lumberjacks. Stats, obviously we show them there. Was a mistypo there. 32 for 45, 367, 6 touchdowns. 7 touchdowns. 2 sacks, 1 rush, and 10 yards. Pretty good game by him. Obviously, we all know him anyways. And then actually, the Lumberjacks swept the Player of the Week awards with Juan Richmond having that huge, 2 interceptions and a touchdown, 1 for a pick 6. Free safety for the Lumberjacks as well. So congrats to those 2. Moving over to the EFC side, Steve Edmonds takes away, no shocker, our Offensive Player of the Week for the EFC Conference. 5 touchdowns and a touchdown on the ground, 474 yards, 3 pretty good. And then none other than, here's his name again, Jermaine Taylor, cornerback for the Snowhawks, having 8 tackles, 2 interceptions. 1 was a pick 6. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is everything. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. Like I said, I will update you all if I'm able to make those games. If they need to be live or if I want to make them live. I'll decide on that hopefully later tonight or early tomorrow. And I'll let you guys know in the community tab and on the social media pages. By the way, we have social media. I keep forgetting to link in the description, but there's a Twitter and a Instagram. I'll make sure to start linking them this time so you guys can follow them. But yeah, so that is all I have. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this. And hopefully you guys are enjoying this league so far. And if you are, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and stay tuned for the rest of the season as we hopefully get through 13 weeks of play and then move on to the playoffs and eventually crown a league champion. And then from there decide if we're going to do this again. As it is a lot of work for just one person. So, and it's just something I'm trying out as well because I wanted to do a whole season. Haven't gotten to do that yet. So I'm trying to see what that's like before I decide if it's something truly I want to continue with. In future years, especially with them adding a team builder feature into the next Madden game. So that should be very exciting, hopefully, to find out what that's all about. But for now, that is all from me, your host here tonight, commissioner, whatever you want to call me. And yeah, that is it. So thank you all again for coming out here, if you still did. And see you guys in the next one. Have a good night. Peace.